Welcome to the April webinar where we're celebrating Community and Technical College Month with a focus on our very own Kentucky Community and Technical College system. My name is Robin Hebert and I'm here at the Council on Post-Secondary Education and I'll be your host for today. I'm sure that all of you have heard of KCTCS, but I thought CTC Month would be a really good time to press pause and dig a little bit deeper into what KCTCS means to Kentucky, especially when it comes to providing affordable education and workforce readiness. So what is KCTCS? Well, Kentucky's system includes 16 colleges that work independently and collectively to help make career dreams become a reality for thousands of Kentuckians. And it's based upon the belief that every Kentuckian deserves the opportunity to earn a better education and a better life. Now, when the Kentucky Community and Technical College System was created in 1998, it was under the Kentucky Post-Secondary Education Improvement Act. And the main goal was to give Kentuckians easier, more affordable access to higher education. So at that time, they combined the 14 community colleges of the University of Kentucky with the 15 technical institutes in the Kentucky Workforce Development Cabinet under a totally new system called KCTCS. And it became the state's ninth kind of unique public institution. So with over 20 years of experience, and I can't believe this, over 1 million students to date, KCTCS is the largest provider of post-secondary education in the state. And it's a primary source for college and workforce readiness, transfer education, and workforce education. So I'd like to tell you a little bit more about KCTCS, its mission, vision, and values. So Heather, yeah, thank you. If you'll share. The mission of the Kentucky Community and Technical College System is to enhance the quality of life and economic vitality of the Commonwealth by serving as the primary provider of college and career readiness, of transfer education, and workforce education and employment training. The vision of KCTCS is to be the primary provider of skilled talent to grow Kentucky. And then I also wanted to share with you this kind of impressive list of values that KCTCS has. This all came from their, excuse me, from their website. And you can see that all kinds of really important values are embedded in the mission and vision that they have. I'd like to also share just a very short video that kind of explains KCTCS a little bit more. So let's take a look. While we're waiting for the video to queue up, I do want to let you all know that today I'm really excited because we have two amazing leaders from the KCTCS Central Office who are here to talk a little bit more in detail about their academic programs and their economic workforce partnerships. So we have Dr. Tara Frick and Jesse Shook who will be joining us, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them after we see the video.
What if there were a college that offered real choices in what you learn and how you learn, where you could get a degree in 2 years or job-ready training in just a few months? A college that worked with businesses to help fill workforce needs, and where most students graduate debt-free. Well, there is a college like this, 16 of them in fact, all part of the Kentucky Community and Technical College System, celebrating over 1 million students impacted. Find a college near you at kctcs.edu.
Okay. So just a little bit of an intro to KCTCS, and we have a lot more to share with you as we go through the webinar today. So as I said, I'm thrilled to have these two key leaders from the KCTCS Central Office today. Dr. Frick, who is the System Associate Vice President of Academic Policy, Programs, and Governance, and Jesse Shook, who is the Vice President of Workforce and Economic Development. So welcome to you both. Tara, we'll start with you. If you want to tell just a little bit about your role as we get started.
Thank you. Yes, so I am a longtime KCTCS employee. I come from West Kentucky Community and Technical College, where I taught English, and then I came to the system office a few years ago, and I have the privilege of leading the unit that takes care of all curriculum across the system. So we get to work with faculty, the program inventory, all the technical and general education faculty, take care of the catalog, academic records. So it's a wide, vast unit that's hits the core of KCTCS, the product that we provide for our students.
Dr. Frick, I was at the Student Success Summit a few weeks ago at U of L, and I know that you have been a longtime employee of KCTCS. You're sort of famous in that room. I know they provided an introduction and seemed like a lot of people in the room knew who you were and really appreciated your work. We also have Jessie Shook with us today. Jessie, if you'll tell us a little bit about your role.
Thanks so much, Robin. Happy to be here. I had the honor of serving as KCTCS's Vice President of Workforce and Economic Development. And I spend the majority of my time dedicated to fostering partnerships with economic development, education and labor cabinet, and more importantly, employers and representatives of employer groups. Higher education is at a really crucial moment right now where the supply and demand alignment has not always been consistently communicated. And so what we're trying to do here at KCTCS is ensure that we're not just reliant on labor market data, as we know is often based on lagging indicators, but that we are coupling that with real-time and proprietary data sources, but more importantly, boots on the ground feedback from those stakeholders to ensure that we are training our students, both in the non-credit side and in the credit side, for the skills not just of today, but also tomorrow. And within my unit, we also have our Workforce Solutions division, which sometimes folks don't know about that unit within KCTCS. So each of the 16 colleges has a Workforce Solutions team, and that team really deeply engages with business and industry to provide customized training and customized assessments for companies in Kentucky, new or currently located in the Commonwealth. And what they do, they really have one foot in business and industry and one foot in academia. And their objective is to understand how we can be partners to their HR teams and really foster lifelong learning, not just for their incumbent workers, but potentially for their new hires as well.
Wow, Jessie, that introduction just brings up so many questions and thoughts, from my end of things. So I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into this partnership. I'm sure that you and Tara have partnerships between your two departments there at KCTCS. So let's talk a little bit about how you, as a system, how do you align the current programs and the future programs with workforce needs, like a boots on the ground approach? How do you do that?
Yeah, I can start. So anytime a college wants to add a new program, they have to go through a process of course, analyzing the local needs. And often that comes from conversations with local employers, but it's got to be more than that. So the colleges use great scorecards. Those cards provide data to help colleges analyze what the market demand is, what the student demand is. And then our Office of Policy Research and Policy Analysis, we refer to it as ORPA, has created a tool called the Program Alignment Tool. And that has a range of functions for the colleges to use to inform decision making. It has a visual map that shows where our programs are across the state. So that could potentially reveal some geographic, gaps for program availability. It provides trend data on 5-year growth for a particular credential, standard occupational code alignment so that we see how our credentials actually line up to jobs in the market. And it also includes job placement and wage outcomes for actual graduates. So that can inform the decision making that colleges make about what programs they need to offer. ORPA has also created an education to workforce tool. It's an application that provides information like the number of jobs in an industry in a particular area, also the number of high school graduates, so that they can kind of predict what's going to be needed down the road. Keep in mind that KCTCS shares curriculum. So we've got one catalog, but that doesn't mean that every college provides every program that's in the catalog. So that new program could be a program that existed at another college that the other college could pick up. But if it's a brand new program that's addressing an emerging need, then we've got another layer in which the subject matter experts engage with the employers to design the curriculum so that it's informed by what employers and what the industry needs. I could go on and on. We've got levels of review processes to ensure that once the program's in the inventory, that it stays up to date. We've got an internal review and alignment process that includes engaging with employers to make sure that any revisions to the curriculum and updates align with what those expectations are. And then we have the CPE program review that happens every 4 years, where colleges have to do a deep dive into their programs to identify, is this a program that needs to continue? Does this need to grow? Or is this a program that needs to sunset?
So it sounds like you've got kind of at least two things going at once. You've got kind of the regular review of existing programs, and then you're also working within different workforce regions to think about emerging programs or new ones that you want to start. I'm really curious. I love this idea of how your employers are involved in curriculum development design. So I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit more about what does that look like? How do you involve them in that process so that it meets the need that they have?
Yeah. So of course the colleges have advisory committees for programs, and those are made up of various stakeholders, including potential employers for our graduates, so that they have a regular kind of contribution to what's happening with that program. And they usually meet twice a year to get feedback. And then to be intentional about the feedback, we've incorporated that review process or that feedback process in our internal review and alignment process. So we have a standard survey that's conducted every 4 years that documents employers' feedback on the curriculum, including letting us know what are the emerging trends that you're seeing. What do we need to start planning for in the next few years to ensure that we keep our curriculum up to date with what those emerging needs are. One of those emerging needs is AI. So that question's on the survey this year. And what we're seeing is more employers wanting our graduates, of course, understanding the ethical use of that. So that's what our faculty are working on now, is ensuring that that's present in the curriculum moving forward.
Yeah.
And Robin, I'd love to kind of contextualize this. I have an example that really fires me up to be able to share with folks. And
Okay.
that is a major healthcare system in the Louisville area is an active, engaged, transformational participant on a healthcare advisory committee there. One of the things that they were seeing with their new graduates is that they were struggling to effectively and timely exit a conversation with a patient. So that sort of customer service approach, and we all know it can be difficult. Think about a networking event that you've been at recently. There is an art form to strategically exiting a conversation. Now you layer on the fact that you're providing care to that individual. There's nuances to that, and it truly is a skill set. And so that employer was able to share with the curriculum committee, they're seeing nurses, their overtime had increased. Nurses were staying behind, needing to access overtime because they weren't able to complete their charting during their shift because they were spending excess time in the patient's room. And so faculty were able to hear that in the curriculum committee. They made some adjustments to their simulation lab component of the curriculum in real time. So those types of changes aren't necessarily substantive in nature. And so they were able to really modify that, given that feedback, and this employer was able to track the reduction in overtime. So they knew, based on a return on investment metric, that what we were doing was effective and working. So I love this example so much because it really brings to life how this sort of plays out and the importance of having an employer who's willing to come to the table and dig into what can be better, not just transactionally showing up. What we're really trying to support at KCTCS is transformational relationships with our company partners across the state.
Yeah, that's a great example, and one that, my brain is thinking, oh, if you have to design a whole new program, that's a massive undertaking. But then these tweaks that you make based upon the industry's needs to existing curriculum is just really, really amazing. I love how KCTCS is really tailored to the economic needs of the region where they are. I've had questions before about, well, why does one campus offer this and another campus doesn't, but they offer, different programs. And so I think it's really amazing how you reflect the unique needs of the different regions. So I just wondered if you all had any like favorite opportunities where you've expanded regional opportunity that you could share. What are some of your favorite programs or stories about just local support?
I've got a couple within the
Okay.
last few years. I don't want to leave any out, but I think these are good examples of how employer feedback has shaped changes. So at Elizabethtown, they have a new program called Automation, Industrial, and Robotics Technology. It's new in that label, but it really is a combination of existing programs. So based on employer feedback, they received, there was a need for a combination of skills from electrical technology, from engineering and electronics, and from industrial maintenance. And that combination needed to be a new skill set. And that's what contributed to the development of this new program. So it was existing skills, just packaged differently to meet the employer's needs for that region. Also, another good example, and I'm sure Jesse can speak to this one too, 3D printing started as a certificate program at Somerset. Really interesting program, and of course, it's evolved and expanded, and it went from a certificate to now we have an additive technology AAS that's offered at Bluegrass as well. And that happened through the collaboration of subject matter experts at Somerset, employer feedback in both areas, and the development and expansion of that program.
I think I saw a news story about that program building a house in
Yeah.
Somerset. Is that the
Yeah.
right story? Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool what they're able to do.
Yeah.
And then, Robin, on the workforce side, when we're thinking about spinning up programs in real time, we obviously have accreditation requirements. We have, curriculum development processes that are in place, and all for very good reason. So how do we respond to immediate signals? The beauty of our workforce solutions departments is that they can lift up non-credit or non-credential training in a for-credit capacity to meet immediate labor market demands. And then as we see that there is a demand regionally for a particular program, we can collaborate with our colleagues in academics to begin that process of accreditation and shifting from that short-term, quick, rapid response program development into a more formal career pathway. And so I think that flexibility really allows us to be responsive at the speed of business. And we've had a few examples of that as well, where for example, the State Board of Elections, we currently have a partnership with the State Board of Elections. There is a critical gap in training for newly elected officiants in all 120 counties, and it's the same training, right? So we have been working with them to offer a training that is available online throughout the state. Eventually, could that translate into something like a public service professional credential? Potentially, right? We have the validation of that one particular skill set. We will able to meet that need quickly with the specific training needed by those organizations across the state. But now the proof of concept is there to really look at, is this an on-ramp to something bigger with more potential opportunity for family sustaining wages for Kentuckians?
Jesse, I love that example. I know in our earlier conversation, we talked about how, on Tara's side of things, you're kind of looking at people coming in maybe with no education or training, and you're skilling them up with credentials or degrees. But then on your side, you're also looking at upskilling of current employees, based on needs that people have. Do you want to talk about that anymore? Do you have any other examples or,
Yeah,
anything else you want to say about
absolutely.
that?
So, I don't like to say when I first started at KCTCS, a lot of people would talk about our workforce solutions units as the best kept secret. I don't think that is the case anymore. We are seeing tremendous need from specifically small and medium-sized businesses who, without partnership with KCTCS, wouldn't be able to address their scope of training needs. They don't typically have learning and development divisions. Sometimes the CHRO is also the chief operations officer, is often the CEO, right? And we see that pretty frequently with our businesses in smaller and more rural communities across the state. We have a very generous allocation from the Kentucky legislature through our KCTCS Trains Fund. We're very excited to share that that fund has been supported in the next biennium at $6 million, and it supports companies to offset the cost of their training and development. We saw such a substantial need for this during COVID, when one of the first budget items that was cut across the country was that training and development budget. At the same time, we were shifting to online work. Companies were furloughing or laying off individuals. People were having to take on new roles. I recall my own experience having to do some marketing material development, and it was about at an 8th grade level because I did not have that training or skill set, right? So this is super important. We've all learned new skills in our jobs, and companies rely on KCTCS as their partner to help meet those skills gaps and ensure that they've got the talent they need, not just to maintain operations, but to grow. So every year we serve hundreds of companies through KCTCS Trains. We serve even more outside of the Trains program, numerous manufacturers, numerous healthcare partners, and we're investing millions of dollars in Kentucky companies through this partnership between KCTCS employers and Kentucky's General Assembly and their investment in this funding opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful for what you're talking about. It sounds overwhelming to me. Just when you think about, 16 discrete campuses who are doing their thing, and then all of these business and industry partners who are talking about, emerging needs and current needs and upskilling and, their pipeline. It must be a real challenge to keep all of that sort of connected and synergizing, working together, So I'm just curious, how do you all work together to keep these processes of continuous improvement and, possibility moving forward? And, like are there certain metrics that you look at to see if you're on the right track? Or talk a little bit about how you work together how the system office helps the 16 campuses and business partners work together.
Yeah, I can start talking about from an academic perspective. Our curriculum is overseen by the subject matter experts, and those are the faculty members of the colleges. So we have a series of curriculum committees. So it's a representative from each one of the colleges, and they're charged with overseeing the curriculum within their area. And also with the technical programs, staying connected with their business and industry partners locally. So those curriculum committees meet regularly. They're able to share what's going on in their region, what changes need to be made to address emerging needs there. They exchange, best practices. It's really an opportunity for particularly those colleges that may have small programs that have one faculty member. They get to join with the other faculty across the state, and it's really a peer network to ensure that the curriculum stays up to date and that they stay up to date on best practices. So I think that's one of the really important pieces in ensuring the curriculum is quality for our students.
So I would love to share a little bit about our KCTCS External Engagement Index. About 5 years ago, we started embarking on the process of mapping our employer relationships across the entire system. This is a massive scope of work. So when you start to think about where these relationships are being tracked, in some instances, we were using a client relationship management tool such as Salesforce for our customized training projects. For advisory committees, they might have been keeping track of those on Excel sheets. There may have been documentation for PERC and CLNA processes. There may be, for example, employers who are engaged with us on Handshake, who participate in career fairs, who show up to our job fairs, who offer job sites, job tours, that entire scope of career exploration activities. Advancement, our business office, employers who are sponsoring tuition benefits. When you really start to think about all of the potential avenues, touch points, departments, and faculty and staff that are managing this relationship, It's everyone's responsibility, which means the data is very difficult to collect. At best, it was in a CRM or on an Excel spreadsheet. In many instances, it was on someone's whiteboard, on sticky notes, or simply in their brain, which is not a scalable or sustainable approach to thinking about employers as formal stakeholders. To my knowledge, KCTCS is the only system in the country that has a formal process for tracking employer partnerships across all colleges and all departments. And I say that, and we know that our data is still imperfect. We've managed to track, and it's taken us about 4 years to get here, over 3,000 employer partnerships. That means they're not just hiring our students off of Handshake. They are showing up actively engaged in an activity with a mutually articulated goal. So our data set allows us to see, for example, if employers are engaged on an advisory committee and perhaps they're collaborating with us to review data, but they're not offering work-based learning experiences. We can see that in the data. We can see, for example, if an employer is sponsoring tuition benefits, but they're not one of our Education First employer partners who are doing that at scale. This is really important because if Dr. Frick and her team are supporting a college to help build out an advisory committee that may have weak participation, we can look at the data set and grow from our existing relationships. We are working on continuous improvement. We've worked with the state to acquire a list of all Kentucky businesses. And so we're trying to cross-reference that list to look at, have we missed anybody who maybe a faculty member was managing that relationship and it wasn't accounted for in the data set? So we're constantly trying to get better in what the data set looks like, but also how we can apply different logic to the data set to help us strategically identify opportunities to work together.
Yeah, that data system sounds really amazing, Jesse. I'm so impressed that you were able to pull that off. And we love it whenever Kentucky is first to have something like that, to do something or have information like that. So sounds like that is really helping to inform your work. But I'm just curious, if you could wave a magic wand that you could have one thing to improve alignment with the state's needs, what would it be that you don't have now?
Jesse, you want to go first?
Oh, yes, I have this one. And this is, don't let me go down a rabbit hole. Pull me out, Robin, if I start. So the way that we think about that very first partnership touch point is critical. Let's put it into context. I'm at a Chamber of Commerce event and I meet a company that does not know or understand the workforce ecosystem, not just KCTCS, but our K-12 partners, our career center partners, our local area workforce boards, the list goes on and on. Kentucky has a rich ecosystem of workforce development assets. But when I sit down with a company, and this is to no fault of my own or any workforce practitioners in the state, I'm typically listening through the lens of what I can provide. To make that even more complicated, if the employer doesn't understand the system, and we've seen this before, they might think, I've got a recruitment problem for, let's say it is a low to middle skill position, but a springboard job into a career pathway towards a family supporting wage. They might think that the best solution is creating a credential because that credential is going to kind of increase the perceived value of that career for people. And they might assume that that is the first step for them is to create a credential short term for that specific role. They may be, by defaulting to that as sort of the diagnostic approach, reducing their scope of talent even more so by creating an unnecessary barrier. Maybe the solution is more strategic skills-based hiring. So I say all that because we do not have in Kentucky or within our system a standard needs assessment. And I think there's a lot of potential for us as a state to think about the way in which we create that tool so that we can point employers to the first best potential tactic to address their talent needs and collaborate them to co-create pipelines. if we were to have something like that, we could then share the diagnostics across agencies, which is what we're trying to do in our SWOT effort, and CPE is an essential partner in that work. But that would allow us to ensure we are meeting employers where they need to be met right out of the gate and then growing partnerships from there. So huge opportunity for us. And I think we'll get there. We're working on some of this and beta testing it. But it is a big lift to get everybody to buy into approaching that in the same way.
Yeah. Right. Tara, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, so from my perspective, working with faculty, trying to respond to what those identified needs are, it would be nice if everybody had a little more time on their schedules because, we, not just our faculty, but, our business and industry partners are busy running their businesses. So it's finding time to be able to engage with them intentionally, get the feedback that we need in order to shape the curriculum decisions that the faculty need to make in those curriculum committee meetings. We've got, like I talked about earlier, a lot of data sources. We've got the feedback from employers. It's a matter of bringing it all together and making wise decisions about the curriculum. And our faculty are doing that while also teaching and taking care of student needs. So those are the priorities. So, really would be wonderful to have more time, but that's just the nature of the game.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned student needs. I want to kind of go back to that for a second. I know that KCTCS is incredibly flexible in terms of options for students, whether they're people who are already employed or maybe even high school students who are wanting to get an early start on their credential or their degree, or students who are coming in, right out of high school. So I'm just curious, how do you incorporate this flexibility into options in response to the students' needs? And how do you connect with students who are maybe coming out of high need pathways and into your programs?
I think modality of delivery is a factor in that, and that's done at the college level. They look at what their regional needs are and decide, is online appropriate? Is a hybrid schedule appropriate? What's needed to ensure that we can provide the education to the student population that needs it? We've also started developing more programs in competency-based education. That particular modality, the way that we're designing it and applying it, allows for more flexibility in students pacing their work. It also allows for, as Jesse talked about earlier, maybe an employer needs to expand, a skill set. That can apply to employees needing to be mobile, maybe advance. So they may come to us with particular skills already, and competency-based education allows for pacing. Maybe they already know some of the skills within the program. They can move a little quicker through those, but they need a little more time in another skill set within the program. So competency-based education is a good option for students who are coming to us that need more flexibility and may have a level of knowledge already and skills. The colleges also work closely with high schools in their regions to address dual credit needs. What are those needs, both in general education options, but technical options as well? Regional workforce needs and the high school needs can vary, so the colleges work to respond based on what those needs are locally.
Yeah.
And Robin, I don't want to jump ahead on the planned topics here, but this is the perfect opportunity to mention our Education First Employer Network. That network is made up of companies who do a few things, really important, critical investments in credential completion. First and foremost, they offer some type of tuition benefit. With uncertainty around federal funding for Pell dollars, we're in a new environment, and it's an environment where we need to think about how we're overturning every possible stone to zero out the cost of education for our students. Every year, nationally, billions of dollars are left on the table from employers who sponsor benefits, and their workers do not access those benefits. They're also partnered with us in at least 2 of the activities that we track in our external engagement index. And finally, they offer flexible scheduling. Those employers, there are 60 companies in Kentucky who are part of this Education First Employer Network, and we are adding more every year. And those companies work with us to ensure that at KCTCS and within their organization, students do not have to make a fork in the road decision, as our society has been sitting for a very long time, right? It is no longer college or career. You can now do both successfully, simultaneously with our Education First employers and at KCTCS, because we are employment conscious educators. So critically important. It responds to 3 populations, right? High school students, job seekers, folks out in the community who are looking for their next opportunity, who think that they have to choose between the two. The reality is they are always going to choose work. Maslow's hierarchy of needs tells us that, right? Second population are students who stop out. They stop out because they're struggling to balance employment and education. And then finally, individuals who are working at these companies who already have access to the tuition benefits but aren't using them. So when we think about the hundreds of thousands of Kentuckians who have some college and no credential, this is a great way to get them back into the post-secondary system and on a pathway in a higher mobility job. A lot of these jobs may be low mobility, but the employers understand that. And so they're investing strategically to ensure that their frontline workers can get upskilled and move on to a sustaining career pathway. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't share, we have such a success story with Goodwill. They were our very first statewide partner. And Goodwill shared with me just a couple months ago that as a result of partnering with us, they've really come to understand some of the nuances and how they structure their tuition benefits in Kentucky. And so instead of reimbursement, knowing that that is a barrier for individuals, it's now an upfront support mechanism for their workers. They also use KCTCS as their partner of choice. So those individuals have to demonstrate that the program isn't offered at KCTCS before they're able to go somewhere else. And that's important because we're in their backyard. We're there with them, hand in glove, ensuring that they can be successful in that pathway. And you don't always get that in some of your online options for post-secondary pathways, which is what you see in many of these education benefit programs. And so Goodwill shared that by making these changes, they have seen the demographic shift already in a couple months. The majority of those accessing benefits were salary workers. Now it's frontline workers, and just changing a couple features of their tuition benefits program. So I believe that's critically important to think about that population who is working and needing that opportunity to continue pursuing educational attainment.
Yeah, great story. There is a really good video about the Education First Employer program. Heather's going to drop that in the chat. I think you talked about it quite a bit, Jesse, so I don't think we need to show that video, but I do want to make it available to anybody who would like to see that. So she's going to drop the link to that in the chat. Before we move on, Jesse, you mentioned federal programs and Pell, and we did have a question. Might be a good time for us to talk about this. It says, how is the state currently working together to prepare for the workforce Pell coming out July 1st? So I didn't know if you all wanted to address that.
Yeah, well, we have an internal work group here at KCTCS.
Okay.
Since we recognize this opportunity was coming to fruition, we began meeting to look at our existing program inventory and how that aligns with the threshold set by the federal government. At the same time, partners at the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board, KY Stats, KIA, CPE, and several others have been coming to the table to help develop a recommended infrastructure that will go to the KWIB and then the governor's office for final approval. Part of that requires us as a state to set thresholds around 3 core variables: in demand, high wage, high skill. This is really important because those are the same 3 variables that are designed to be operationalized within Perkins decision-making. But if you start to dig into the research behind how states are doing this, you're going to find that it's done 50 different ways.
Mhm.
So we have been very focused in Kentucky on ensuring that the definitions we set for Pell set us up for success in aligning with WIOA, in aligning with Kentucky's key sectors, and in aligning with Perkins. And so we're still teasing out a couple of those variables. We really want to get it right for Workforce Pell. The second piece of this, though, is these thresholds are set high. We know that changes are coming with stats accountability, and we have to start thinking about sort of the Aspen College 3.0 model, which is what happens to our students after they graduate. Because of that, it's going to be critically important that we design programs responsive to emerging labor market needs that meet those thresholds. So we're setting up our students for success. So that's part of what we're working on here at KCTCS too, is how can we take that framework and apply it to the feedback that we're seeing from our economic development partners and our workforce solutions leaders across the state, understanding those emerging needs in real time, and then creating programs that meet the benchmarks set by the federal government for Workforce Pell.
Okay. Thank you for talking about that. I know that has been a topic of a lot of interest across the state. I wanted to loop back, and probably a question more for you, Tara, but I'm sure, Jesse, you have some things to say about it as well. I have been thinking about when you talked about the nursing example, and talking with patients and having those kind of skills. I'm thinking about our graduate profile work and those kind of softer skills that are embedded in the programs. And also, Jesse, you mentioned work-based learning opportunities. I know that especially in some of the more technical areas, that work-based learning experiences are really, really important. And I've talked to other folks from the KCTCS system about just how work-based learning can be sort of staggered. Like early on, you have kind of limited exposure. So you're kind of saying, am I sure that this is for me? And then as you move through your program, there's more and more exposure to the point that you are trying out the job and actually doing it, in the work setting. So I just thought I would ask about some of those soft skills and the graduate profile, its role in what you all do, and how you try to incorporate work-based learning into students' experiences.
Yeah, we are working to intentionally embed the 10 essential skills across the curriculum. We're going through a mapping process as part of our internal curriculum review and alignment process. So faculty are examining courses and identifying where those skills are found, and then stepping back and looking at the big picture of their programs and seeing how the skills are scaffolded, and if there are particular gaps, how do those gaps need to be closed. We're doing that in the gen ed area as well, our graduation requirements, technical programs across the curriculum, and asking those hard questions of where do we need to put more emphasis. The surveys that they're providing through the review and alignment process have 2 questions about the graduate profile, 10 essential skills, asking employers to rate our graduates that they've hired, and also rate the importance of each one of the skills within that industry sector, so that our faculty know what needs to be emphasized, what they may be weak in and need to put more attention to. So that is a central component of what we're doing through the internal review and alignment process. As for work-based learning, that's part of the conversation too within technical programs. What role does work-based learning need to play within a particular program, and what does that need to look like? And I don't think there's any one way to build work-based learning into a program. It's going to depend upon the program itself, what opportunities are there. Really true work-based learning where students get to go out into the workplace, takes partnerships. There are other ways as well. So faculty are examining ways to build that across their curriculum. One example comes to mind. Our education faculty have been talking about their students who think they want to be teachers, and the further they get into the program, they discover that it's not really what they were looking for. So they're building more observation and other types of hours that take the students out into the school, so that the students can make those decisions earlier rather than later, so that they can shift to a career path that's more fitting for what their interests are. We have a few different methods of tracking work-based learning. Of course, in our healthcare programs, they're clinical hours. Students spend a lot of time in clinical settings. There are co-ops, there are internships, there are practicums, and our faculty just have to decide what's a good fit for this particular program area and what they have opportunities for. We also have to take into consideration student ability. You know, our students come to us trying to improve their lives, and they may have transportation issues. So we have to be careful in how we build those requirements into the program to make sure that when we build those in, that we build it in a way that the student has the opportunity to engage in those work-based learning experiences.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just
Robin,
curious.
could I
Oh, go
could
ahead.
I add? Oh, I'm sorry. Ask your follow-up.
I just had, just one really quick follow-up. Tara, I love how you're talking about these surveys that you have, for just so that you know what's going on, for the students and for the industry partners and for your instructors. And I'm just curious, I want to keep the conversation very positive, but I do just have one question about when you are learning about skill gaps between what the employer's expectations are and where your students are. What are some of the things that you're seeing that are maybe new or that are emerging, in terms of what are some of those most important and maybe most needed skills for your graduates?
Yeah, I think it varies across programs. You know, our program faculty meet regularly with their advisory committee, so they get that feedback in between these formal surveys that are administered every 4 years. So they're able to respond on a regular basis to what the employers are seeing. I mentioned earlier, one that we're seeing common on a lot of the surveys is, AI and the ethical use of it. I think our employers are trying to learn many of them are trying to learn how to utilize AI. So they are turning to us. So faculty are really trying to figure out how to build that into the curriculum. We'll often see, as Jesse mentioned earlier, communication skills, though. Those, of course, are always, there's room for improvement there always. But for the most part, what I'm seeing is our programs are really meeting the expectations of employers, and where the gaps are might be, emerging things that might call for, in some of our technical programs, new equipment. And, that takes a financial investment for the colleges. So these surveys provide that evidence of a need to be able to respond. We try to stay in contact, like I said, with the business and industry partners on the advisory committees, and that helps the faculty stay in front of those gaps, or is responding as quickly as possible to those identified gaps.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Jesse,
Robin,
you had something you wanted to add.
I wanted to share sort of the national scope of research right now is very clear that the limitations in work-based learning aren't that faculty don't know how to align an opportunity to our curriculum. It's not that we're not tracking it consistently. It's not that students don't want to do work-based learning. It's that there are not enough opportunities for all students. We are seeing a dramatically different labor market than we have ever seen in our lifetime. For the first time, high school graduates, just diploma holders, are better off in the labor market than bachelor's degree earners. This is an unprecedented time for us. And the gap is experience, right? I think back several years ago, working with IT partners in the state through the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce Talent Pipeline Management approach, we kept coming up against this critical issue that IT employers were struggling for entry-level talent, much of which may be outsourced to AI at this point, but they all wanted to see 3 to 5 years of experience. A graduate cannot acquire 3 to 5 years of experience without an opportunity to do so. And so I think for Kentucky, a critical missing component of this infrastructure is how are we creating a support structure to help employers, especially those that don't have learning and development departments, to create these experiences? They may not know what a student's capable of. And I am far more concerned with our students who are intending to transfer and complete that bachelor's and are facing a labor market that is shifting towards, what new graduates were experiencing in 2008. We have to figure out how to help them get their foot in the door with companies, even if it's not aligned to credit, even if it doesn't expedite credential completion. It should be paid from an equity standpoint because students cannot afford to do it if it competes with their primary job. But if we can't help employers with the lift of understanding what our students are capable of, taking their job description and then helping them to transform it into a paid internship or potentially even an apprenticeship model, we're going to continue with this bottleneck where students just simply don't have enough opportunity. So I think we're at a critical moment for collaboration in Kentucky where no one institution can do this alone. We're going to have to think about how we partner to provide those services to employers, but we have got to do better to help employers get over the finish line and figuring out how to create that opportunity for students.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we are coming up on time. I could talk for a lot longer. I have so many other things that I'd like to ask you all about, but Heather's going to queue up a quick year in review for 2025. I want to just kind of give this blitz of accomplishments for 2025 for KCTCS. And then I'm going to give you all the opportunity to answer a last question that you can be thinking about right now. And that is, what are you most proud of? And what are you most looking forward to as you look into the future? So let's see the video.
As we wrap up 2025, I want to take a moment to celebrate all that we've accomplished together this past year. This year, our colleges reached a historic milestone of more than 24,000 graduates and 44,000 credentials awarded, the highest totals in KCTCS history. We also saw system-wide enrollment increase for the second consecutive fall in a row, putting us on track to potentially set another record. We strengthened our impact across the state by signing new partnership agreements with organizations that share our mission of building a stronger, better prepared Kentucky workforce. We also renewed transfer agreements with many of our four-year partners, making it easier than ever for our students to continue their educational journey after earning an associate's degree with us. We brought back the KCTCS annual conference, giving us the opportunity to learn from each other and to honor the faculty and staff who go above and beyond for our students every single day. And recently, 8 of our 16 KCTCS colleges were named to the Aspen Institute's top 200 list, recognizing an achievement among more than 1,100 community colleges nationwide.
All right, so this video plays like some sort of awards extravaganza, and I know it only scratches the surface of what KCTS means to our state. I recently learned that the system raised over $57,000 for its food pantries across its 16 campuses. I know that it provides more than 60% of dual credit that's earned in Kentucky. I know that they have partnerships to provide nursing and other scholarships for high demand sectors, and have these partnerships mentioned with Morehead State and other institutions to make it easier for students to transfer. I've even heard that the economic impact is estimated at nearly $4 billion for Kentucky from KCTCS. So I just want to give you an opportunity to say what you're most proud of in the work that you do, and what you're looking forward to.
I can go first.
Okay.
I think I am most proud of the people that make up KCTCS. Jesse speaks business and industry. I speak academics. We work together, and that's how we get things done. And as I said, I'm in the academics area. Everything in that video comes down to the education that we provide, and that's provided by our faculty. So I'm very proud of our faculty. We have the range of knowledge and skills across our system is astounding, and I get to see it on a regular basis working. I have an English background. I taught English, but I get to work with the air conditioning curriculum committee. I get to work with the construction curriculum committee. All of these different areas, and they're so knowledgeable. And it's because of that that we're able to provide the education to so many students across the state. So that's what I'm proud of.
In our last strategic plan, one of our 3 pillars was employment success. I mentioned that that is the Aspen 3.0 model, right? Thinking about access is College 1.0, access and completion as College 2.0, access, completion, and what happens after graduation as 3.0. I think KCTCS is really ahead of the curve in embracing how we challenge ourselves to position that at the front of every conversation that we have. You heard a lot about it from the way in which Dr. Frick described our curriculum alignment process, the way we're engaging with partners on the ground, our commitments to mapping these employer relationships, which was not easy work, and it's an iterative work and process, but we can't do it without those partnerships, right? We can't control that employment outcome unless we are deeply engaged with companies to foster stronger outcomes for our students. And so I'm really proud of that work, and I'm looking forward to continuing to grow that work and see our students thrive in our communities.
Well, I can't thank you both enough for taking time to prepare for the webinar and to join us today to give, I know time is really valuable for you. Really appreciate you coming on to talk a little bit about the KCTCS system, and we're just really excited about what the future holds, and really interested to hear how you are strategically planning for what comes next. So thank you all so much. And I think it's about time for us to wrap up today. And Heather, if you'll share those last couple of slides, I did want to, first of all, let you all know that the KCTCS fact book is linked in the chat. So if you want to find out more, you can go there. There's a wealth of information on their website. And then also I wanted to let you know about the upcoming webinars for May. In May, instead of one webinar, one combined, we'll have 2. And a second here, I'll share my screen. We will have two webinars, one on May 12th that's celebrating the 25-26 school year from an advising standpoint. So this one will focus on the work of the Kentucky Advising Academy, and especially talk about the brand new scope and sequence that's coming up. And then on May 26th, we'll have a look at how we're using data to drive Kentucky's 60 by 30 goal. So you don't want to miss those webinars. And then finally, for today's presentation, here's the link to the evaluation. Please remember that if you need FRISC or ELA credit, this is how you get that. You can let us know. One of the questions is that you would need that. So please complete the evaluation. We also love to hear your feedback about the sessions and if they've been helpful to you. So thank you again to Dr. Frick and to Jessie Shook for being with us today from KCTCS. We really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you all for having us.
Mhm.